Thanks to the witnesses. Mr. Ditlevson, you were here before us on the 11th of December for the National Guard hearing, and I asked 2 questions for the record that I submitted to you right after the hearing that you have not yet answered. Is there any reason why you have not yet answered them 2.5 months later?
Senator, from my particular position, submitted questions, but they need to go through legal review and make sure that they get over to you with the proper notations from different components for their input. But I made sure that we've submitted those, and we're going to get them to you ASAP, Senator.
Well, I'd like to submit the unanswered questions for the record 2.5 months after I submitted them. The 2 questions are a total of 6 lines of text. They're very short questions, and I'm not impressed with the response time. If I could submit those for the record, Mr. Chair.
Without objection. So ordered.
Mr. Ditlevson, I was not here when Senators Reid and Fisher were asking about the El Paso incident because of a HELP committee hearing I had, but I understand that your testimony was that there was no lack of communication between the federal agencies. Was that your testimony?
Yes, Senator, that's correct. Robust communication over a period of 14 months is what was occurring between the FAA and the Department of War.
Then what was the breakdown that caused the closure of the airspace for that number of hours and the significant cancellation of flights?
Senator, I can't speak to the FAA's determination to set up the temporary flight restriction and why they did it the way they did for the length of period of time, but I can say that we provided notification when this system became fully operationally capable, and then we also provided notification with our intent to fire the system.
The news accounts suggest that insufficient notice was provided to the FAA. Do you dispute those accounts?
I would dispute those accounts, and I don't think they had the totality of our communication. It was only a selective piece.
Because it's one thing to say you provided notification. If you provided notification just minutes before something happened, that would have been insufficient. And that's what the suggestion is. And look, the reason I ask about this, you'll get the El Paso thing straight. We had a crash at DCA Reagan a little bit over a year ago. 67 people, including 3 members of the United States Army, lost their lives because of inadequate communication between the DOD and the FAA. And this was a danger that we had repeatedly warned about. The National Transportation Safety Board has come out with a report assessing a number of things that went wrong. And so when we see something like this at El Paso, and thank goodness flights were canceled, but there were no injuries or deaths, and then we hear that, no, there's adequate communication between the parties, forgive us for being skeptical. We don't want to be complacent and see significant other challenges. And so that's why we ask about this, and we will continue to follow up on it. In response to my colleague, Senator King, you said with respect to boat strikes in the Pacific, you have been involved in policy, not like the determination about particular operations. Have you been involved in the discussion around the policy of which boats should be struck, or what should the targeting criteria be?
Senator, from our particular policy office, we're not involved in the target preparation and the engagements that are briefed up to the Secretary. That granularity is the purview of, I believe General Braga was over here and briefed the committee and the Special Operations Office.
Separate from individual instances, have you been involved in discussions about what the criteria should be that should warrant potential kinetic action?
Senator, I have not been involved in what criteria constitutes a threat that they can engage legally under that framework. Our office has not been involved in that.
So you're not aware of what the requirements are for assessing which boats can be targeted in these operations?
Senator, for those specific requirements, I would defer to the Special Operations Low Intensity Conflict Office and the Joint Staff.
Yeah, that's not the question I asked you. I asked you, sitting here today, are you aware of the targeting criteria that render a craft eligible to be stricken by kinetic activity?
Yes, Senator, I'm aware of the criteria that would constitute a threat that allows for engagement under constructs that the Office of General Counsel has reviewed and provided to the Secretary.
Is one of those criteria demonstrable evidence that a craft contained narcotics?
Senator, I want to make sure that I provide you the absolute correct answer. And so if confirmed, I will make sure to answer that question, but that's one that I'd like to take back to get you the exact.
And how long will that take?
ASAP, Mr. Chairman.
And as I hand it back to the chair, I have been given the answer to that question in a classified setting and have some significant concerns about it. But that concerned operations that had happened before January 1, September to January 1. And I'm asking for a classified briefing on each operation since January 1 to see if the criteria may have changed. But we'll pose the question in a very precise way in a written QFR, and we would love to get a prompt response. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And again, Mr. Ditlevson, that's not exactly your call.